my main reaction to the film was that they would show us moments, kids in the audience who were clearly not into it or puzzled, right? Mm-hmm. Or feeling awkward. A little bit.
I didn't get that much, but yeah.
They would show them, and then they didn't follow up on it.
Yeah.
Right? There was one kid who, everybody's supposed to come up and give or a bunch of them to come up on the stage and give their little testimony, and his was about how much trouble he's having believing in God. Mm-hmm. And you sort of see him again during the course of the film.
Right, that was a great moment.
But they didn't follow him. They didn't ask him, to explain where he was, and there was no, before and after.
Yeah, he got up on stage and he candidly said, while crying, that it's hard to believe in God because you can't see or hear him, and he doesn't know if he feels the Spirit. And
that was just heart-wrenching because you wanted to go and rescue him.
Yes, absolutely.
But there were a couple of times later on in the movie when they came back to him, and while I agree, I wish they'd have followed up and talked to him and everything else, what you did see was him sitting off by himself under a tree reading a book, which is Children Demand a Verdict, which is the kids' version of Josh McDowell's trash. And then later on, when the asshat anti-abortion guy, it was the other guy, the fatter guy, was asking people, who's willing to give up your life for Jesus? When he was looking at the kid's got his hand raised and a big smile on his face, and then you could tell as soon as he turned away and wasn't looking directly at that kid, the kid's hand fell down to his head and his face just kind of fell.
Wow, I didn't notice that.
I watched that. There was one thing that I saw in every one of those little kids, and that was that every single one of them, to me, looked like they were doing nothing but seeking approval. Mm-hmm. You've got the little girl who goes and randomly witnesses at the bowling alley and then immediately runs to Daddy to tell him how God had her witness so that she can get approval from Dad and a hug.
And Daddy says, that's the way to be obedient.
Yeah. And then you've got Levi, the little preacher kid, who's rehearsing his sermon and
the mullet boy you see so often in the trailer.
Yeah. And does this while he's practicing his sermon out there by himself. He's doing the fake crowd noises, and you can tell that he's looking for this approval too. And that poor little blonde kid who was having trouble, believing. You could just see it. He raised his hand. Oh yes, I want to be included in what everybody else is doing. And then as soon as somebody stopped looking, it was it was devastating, I thought.
And there was this one scene also where the ringmaster,
the lady,
the big fat lady,
who I will refer to as the bitch from now on,
organized this whole thing. She was saying, Jesus is speaking to me right now, and he's telling me that there are a lot of you out there who think you're Christians and go to church, but you have evil thoughts, and proceeds to tell them what horrible little shits they are. And in the next scene, practically all the kids are crying.
Yeah. She's talking about giving your life for Jesus, and she can't even give up cheesecake for Jesus.
Well, that's...
I don't know that giving up cheesecake is in the Bible, or something you can.
Is gluttony?
Infer.
Gluttony is one of the 7 deadly sins, though.
Is the 7 deadly sins in the Bible actual scriptural thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
She sure loves that one.
But not all overweight people necessarily.
I'm not cutting that shit any slack.
No, I think she's a horrible person. Horrible person, right?
Not because she's fat.
And completely upfront about it, which was astonishing about her, right?
Yeah.
Right.
She's got her internally consistent little worldview that, she's completely comfortable with. And from outside of it, you look at it and go, holy crap!
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, she's having an interview directly with the cameraman. And she says, I'll bet there are a bunch of people who are going to see this and be horrified. Good, was basically her attitude. And she was talking right to us. We were horrified.
Right.
We think it's a horrible thing what she's doing to these kids. And she was happy about it because the world is supposed to shun you.
The whole justification for this place. Matt's got his notes.
I'm not. You go right ahead. I wasn't
ready.
The
whole justification for the existence of this place was and this is what she explained. Muslims are raising their children to be little lunatic extremists. Therefore, we need to do the same thing, or we're falling behind. Never mind the fact that not all Muslim children are raised to be little extremists, just a very tiny number in some very tiny, scary terrorist training facilities.
It seems this whole thing was like a two rungs issue.
But
who cares what some Muslims are doing?
Right.
I mean, if some Muslims were castrating their kids and dyeing their skin blue, would you be doing that too?
So you wouldn't fall behind?
She has this impression that because some tiny percentage of Muslim kids are raised to be terrorists, that therefore some slightly larger percentage, at least, of Christian children have to be raised to be extremists also.
Well, let's go back for a minute to the Sam Harris discussion we had last week. And let's not sort of underplay the seriousness of that tiny faction.
Good point.
I mean, the fact that there are a lot of Muslims out there, and even if it's a small percentage, it is still a lot in absolute numerical terms. The fact that they are going out there and training kids to be little killing machines, which some of them are, is in fact a threat to us to an extent.
Right.
But the answer to that is not to have our own little madrasas here where we train kids to use machine guns, which they weren't doing, but that's what they were talking about. I mean,
right.
Of course,
I agree.
For God.
Now, when I was driving home, I came to this realization pretty much that these Christians are using their children to further their own agendas.
Oh, sure.
They're cynically and deliberately manipulating their own children for political gain.
There is a lot of that in... I don't know about other religions. I know in Christianity, a whole lot of it, a whole lot of the sales pitch is targeted at parents and trying to reassure and encourage them that their children will remain their little slaves for their entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm appalled by this. My own parents,
horrible.
My own parents, who are Methodist ministers, right? Or at least my dad is now.
Yeah. Thinking of your children is just a means to an end.
My dad said to me on the phone the other day something to the effect of, when I was he said when I was a kid, I had an argument with my mom, very small, actually, not even an argument. I wouldn't call it an argument. I'd call it a disagreement over a point that was really important to her. And my dad said, when I was a kid, I'd never argue with my parents. Well, I'm in my 40s. What the hell is that?
If you still think I'm a kid, we have another issue to discuss.
Right. But, there's this whole... Why is one of the 10 Commandments honor your mother and father? I think that's just sick.
Pass on your memes without unnecessary mutations.
Actually, it's honor your father and mother.
What?
Actually, it's honor your father and mother. It's important because the men always come first.
Sorry. But I don't think it's just a mimetic thing. Russell, I don't think it's just a mimetic thing. There's this opinion that a lot of parents have, and we can get deeper into this later maybe because we got an email from an atheist parent. But there's an opinion that a lot of parents have that somehow they have ownership of them kids that they made, and that they have some kind of right to demand fealty from them forever. And that, I think that's directly appealed to by at least Christianity in pretty blatant ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine up to a point. I mean, I think anybody.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
Anybody, I think it's, in a very general sense, a good idea for kids to obey their parents. in a very general sense.
Right.
But not in all cases.
But you don't own them. You
and
can't
not forever.
throw them away, and you can't kill them.
Yeah.